1930s, Midwest America. Banks collapsed. Grocery shelves emptied. Fathers stood in bread lines for hours. And yet, entire families fed themselves for weeks without spending a single dollar. Not because they were lucky, because they knew where to look. For nearly a century, industrial agriculture quietly rewrote our relationship with food. Wild plants got labeled weeds. Foraging got rebranded as dangerous. Free nutrition growing in every forest, every roadside, every empty lot was systematically erased from public knowledge, replaced by dependency on supply chains that, as we've seen, can break without warning. But the land never forgot. And today on Nature Unearthed, we're pulling back the curtain on 15 survival foods growing wild in every single state, free, renewable, and more nutritious than most things in your grocery cart. Number 11 is almost certainly in your yard right now. Most people spray it with poison. Let's start reclaiming what was always ours. Number 1, dandelion. The most aggressively suppressed food in suburban America. Dandelions grow in all 50 states, from Alaska tundra edges to Florida lawns, and every single part is edible. The roots, the stems, the flowers, the leaves. Indigenous communities used dandelion medicinally for centuries. Depression-era families ate the greens as salad staples when produce was unaffordable. Nutritionally, dandelion leaves contain more beta-carotene than carrots, more calcium than milk, and significant levels of iron, potassium, and vitamin C and K. The root, when roasted and ground, produces a caffeine-free coffee substitute that sustained frontier families through long winters. Harvest young leaves in spring before flowering for the mildest flavor. Look for the deeply serrated leaves and hollow stems that release white sap when broken. No lookalikes in North America are toxic. This is one of the safest wild foods you can learn. Number 2, lamb's quarters. Walk past any disturbed soil, a vacant lot, a garden edge, a roadside ditch, and you've likely walked past lamb's quarters without knowing it. This wild green, also called wild spinach, outperforms commercial spinach in nearly every nutritional category. Higher protein, more calcium, more iron, more vitamin A. It was a staple crop for Native American communities across the plains long before European settlement. The seeds were ground into flour and stored through winter. The leaves were eaten fresh or dried for later use. During the Dust Bowl, families who knew this plant had greens when gardens turned to dust. Identify it by the pale, almost powdery coating on the young leaves and its diamond-shaped leaf edges. It grows fast, reseeds itself aggressively, and once you find one patch, you'll find it everywhere. Number 3, wood sorrel tart, refreshing and shaped like a tiny clover. Wood sorrel grows in shaded forests, garden beds, and alongside walking trails across every state. Pioneers used it to fight scurvy on long overland journeys because of its remarkable vitamin C content. Indigenous people across North America treated it as a trail snack, a thirst quencher, and a fever remedy. Its oxalic acid content gives it a bright, lemony flavor that elevates salads, soups, and sauces. Harvest in moderation. As with spinach, large quantities aren't ideal daily, but as a survival green, it delivers both hydration and nutrition when you need it most. Number 4, stinging nettle. One of the most nutritious plants on Earth, and one of the most avoided, purely because of its sting. That's a mistake that's cost people free food for generations. Once blanched, steamed, or dried, nettle loses its sting entirely and reveals itself as one of the most protein-dense wild greens available. Nettles contain iron levels that rival red meat. They're loaded with magnesium, potassium, and vitamins A, C, and K. Across Europe and indigenous North America, nettle was a spring survival food, eaten after long winters when preserve stores ran low and fresh gardens hadn't yet produced. Nettle soup fed people through famines. Find it along stream banks, forest edges, and disturbed soils wearing gloves. Harvest the young top leaves in spring and cook them into anything you'd use spinach for. Number 5, cattail. If there's a single plant that could keep a person alive indefinitely, it's cattail. It grows in wetlands, ditches, and pond edges across every state, and it produces edible food in every season. In spring, the young shoots taste like cucumber. The green pollen heads in early summer can be eaten like corn on the cob, or dried into a flour so protein-rich that native nations used it as a staple grain. In fall and winter, the starchy rhizomes, the underground roots, can be processed into a white, gluten-free flour. 1 acre of cattails produces more starch per year than an acre of wheat. The U.S. Army Survival Manual lists cattail as a primary food source for exactly this reason. Number 6, chickweed. It grows in cool months when most wild plants go dormant, which makes it a genuinely critical survival green. Chickweed carpets garden beds and forest floors from late fall through early spring, precisely when fresh food is hardest to find. It tastes mild and fresh, similar to young spinach, and is rich in vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. European settlers relied on it heavily through winter months. Identify it by its tiny white star-shaped flowers and the single line of fine hairs running along one side of the stem. Number 7, wild garlic mustard. This invasive plant took over American forests so aggressively that conservation groups spend millions trying to remove it, which means it's everywhere, and it's free. Garlic mustard is rich in vitamins A and C, has a bold, peppery garlic flavor, and can be eaten raw in salads, cooked into pesto, or dried and ground into a seasoning. The fact that it's invasive is actually your advantage. You cannot overharvest it. You cannot damage the ecosystem by eating it. You are helping by foraging it. Harvest the young leaves in spring for best flavor. Number 8, elderberry. Growing along forest edges, riverbanks, and roadsides in clusters of dark purple fruit, elderberry is one of the most historically significant survival plants in North America. Indigenous communities across the continent used every part, bark, flowers, berries, leaves, for food and medicine. The berries are packed with antioxidants and antiviral compounds. Cooked into syrups, jams, or dried for winter storage, they were a primary immune support food through cold and flu season, long before pharmaceutical options existed. Do not eat them raw in large quantities. Cooking neutralizes compounds that cause digestive upset. Identify by the compound leaves and clusters of small dark fruit. Number 9, wild violet. Most people consider violets a charming but useless ground cover. In reality, the leaves contain more vitamin C per gram than oranges and more vitamin A than most leafy vegetables. They grow in lawns, forests, and roadsides in every state without requiring a single human intervention. Both the leaves and the flowers are edible raw or cooked. Frontier families made violet leaf tea during winter illness. The leaves can be dried and powdered as a nutritional supplement or tossed fresh into salads for a mild, slightly floral flavor. Number 10, acorns. Every oak tree is a calorie factory hiding in plain sight. Acorns were the single most consumed food of indigenous people across North America for thousands of years. Not because nothing else was available, but because they are extraordinarily calorie-dense, storable for years, and processable into flour, porridge, or oil. The key step most people skip, leaching. Raw acorns contain tannins that taste bitter and cause digestive issues. Soaking crushed acorns in water for several cycles removes the tannins and unlocks a mild, nutty flour that works in breads, pancakes, and soups. In caloric terms, one large oak tree can produce enough acorns per year to supplement a family's diet for months. Number 11, purslane. Here it is, the plant most people in America are actively destroying. Purslane grows in driveways, sidewalk cracks, neglected garden beds, and disturbed soils in every single state. It's fleshy, succulent, and almost impossible to kill because it evolved to thrive in exactly the conditions where other plants fail. And nutritionally, purslane contains more omega-3 fatty acids than most fish, more vitamin E than spinach, significant amounts of magnesium, potassium, and calcium. NASA studied it as a potential crop for long-duration space missions because of how much nutrition it packs into how little water it needs. Indigenous and Mediterranean cultures have eaten it for thousands of years. Depression-era families ate it when gardens failed. It tastes bright, slightly lemony, and works raw in salads or cooked in soups. The next time you see it growing uninvited in your yard, harvest it. Don't poison it. Number 12, black walnut. While commercial walnuts get all the attention, black walnuts grow wild across the eastern two-thirds of the country and produce some of the most calorie and protein-dense food available for free. The husks stain your hands, but beneath that is a rich, bold-flavored nut loaded with omega-3s, antioxidants, and more protein per ounce than most nuts. Frontier families crack black walnuts through winter as a critical fat and protein source. The shells were used as dye and tool material. Even the leaves and bark carry medicinal properties documented by indigenous communities across centuries of use. Number 13, miner's lettuce. Named by California gold rush miners who ate it to prevent scurvy on long expeditions. Miner's lettuce is a cool season succulent that grows wild across the western United States and has naturalized across much of the country. Its round, fleshy leaves wrapped around a central stem are unmistakable and completely safe. It's mild, crisp, and high in vitamin C, exactly what the body needs after months of stored food with little fresh produce. It grows in shaded, moist areas through winter and early spring, precisely filling the hunger gap when other wild plants aren't yet producing. Number 14, hawthorn. Most people walk past hawthorn trees every day without recognizing them. These thorny shrubs and small trees grow in hedgerows, forest edges, and disturbed lands across all regions. In fall, they produce small red berries, called haws, that are edible, mildly sweet, and extraordinarily rich in antioxidants and heart-supporting compounds. Indigenous communities across North America dried haws for winter storage, ground them into flour, or cooked them into a thick paste similar to apple butter. They store naturally on the branch well into winter, offering a late-season calorie source when most other wild fruits have long disappeared. Number 15, hickory nut. Last on the list but highest in calories, hickory nuts grow across the eastern and central United States and were among the most important energy foods for indigenous and frontier communities alike. The nuts are richly flavored, extraordinarily calorie-dense, and the oil pressed from them was used as a cooking fat and food preservative. Native nations stored hickory nuts through winter as a critical cold season fat source. The shells crack hard, but the reward is a nut so energy-dense that a relatively small harvest can sustain a person through days of physical labor. The land still provides. It has never stopped providing. We simply accepted a story that told us food only comes in packaging, on shelves, after being trucked across half a continent. These 15 plants grow freely in every state, asking nothing from you except the willingness to see them. Food security doesn't begin with a full pantry. It begins with knowledge. And knowledge, unlike supply chains, cannot break. If this opened your eyes, subscribe to Nature Unearthed, where we uncover the forgotten systems that once made people truly independent.